So, you remember that section 16 I was talking about in the big picture map? There was some kind of that section 16 wasn't owned by Fish and Wildlife up until a few years ago. And so there was some kind of a deal where section 16 got transferred to Fish and Wildlife and made into part of the refuge. And at that time, there was some sort of preliminary surveying and analysis of the environment in section 16, and there's a pond out there, and this pond had a barrel in it, a 55-gallon drum, that looked exactly like Rocky Flats radioactive waste drums, and John Barton testified to that fact, and the pond water was analyzed for certain chemicals, but it wasn't analyzed for radionuclides. So it's not known right now whether or not that pond might contain radionuclides. And the trail system that Fish and Wildlife has proposed goes right to that pond. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody rode their bike or their horse out there and got in the pond and, you know, nobody knows what's in that water. So that was one thing from John Barton. There was testimony by Dr. Harvey Nichols, who's a professor emeritus at CU, and he did a study in the 70s, which was really fascinating. He's a specialist in like pollen and things, and somehow he got a grant to study snowfall on the Rocky Flats site, and he found plutonium in freshly fallen snow, on top of the snow. So what that meant was that the plant was emitting plutonium out of its smokestacks, and the plutonium was adhering to the snow and settling to the surface. And there were lots of sources of contamination at Rocky Flats, but that is one that contaminated everything, just with like a thin dusting of plutonium all the time, regardless of whether it's snowing or not. The plutonium's coming out the smokestacks and it's settling down on the ground. So he testified to all of that, and he estimated that hundreds of billions of plutonium oxide particles per acre had been deposited. Then there was testimony from our own Dr. Michael Ketterer, professor emeritus at Northern Arizona University. He was at Metro State for a while. He is a PhD analytical chemist and a specialist in plutonium studies in soils. He has spoken at these meetings before. He testified about his own sampling that he's done around Rocky Flats just as a hobby interest. And he testified about what he calls the nugget effect, which is that, even a small sample of soil, it's hit or miss whether you find one of these little plutonium oxide particles. And if you find it, it really spikes your radioactivity counts. And if you miss it, your counts don't look so bad, but that particle could be right there. He calls it a nugget. And he took samples in 2000 and 2002, and he was sampling out there south of the Great Western Reservoir, kind of in that dog park, open space kind of area, and he was finding 9 picocuries per gram, which is 450 times background, that far east of Indiana. So that was awesome testimony. And then we had on the phone a guy named Dr. Timothy Mousseau from a university in the Carolinas. I didn't make a note of it, but he's a PhD in biology, and his specialty is the biological effects of environmental radiation. He's done studies around Chernobyl and Fukushima. He's written 100 papers or more on this topic. He's served on National Academy of Sciences panels and so on. He's currently an expert witness for the government of South Korea on food exports from Fukushima. So he was talking about the risk to humans of plutonium exposure, and he testified that children and women are most vulnerable, and that there is absolutely a relationship between radionuclides and cancer, or all radionuclides are carcinogens. It's well known from the literature and so on. He testified a lot about the relationship between dose and risk, and the scientific consensus is that there is no threshold of dose below which there's no risk. So the tiniest exposure can give you a risk of cancer. And this is another one of the contentious points, is that CDPHE and EPA and DOE are saying that the area is protective of human health, but they're making assumptions about, first of all, they're making assumptions about average soil concentrations, and averaging is completely inappropriate because it neglects the effects of those nuggets, those hot spots. So they say, okay, if the average contamination across the whole refuge is 1 picocurie per gram or whatever number they're using, and a person takes a 2-hour hike in the refuge, that their exposure is just 2 hours to that concentration, which means that their dose is some minuscule number, which means that their excess cancer risk is 1 in a million. And so they connect all these dots and they come to this conclusion. Well, Dr. Rousseau testified that there's no threshold below which the risk is 0. And I think if you were in the middle of that dust devil and you took a deep breath, that all those assumptions and modeling that CDPHE does just doesn't apply to that scenario. Okay, so what else did he say? He said it is more likely than not that exposure at Rocky Flats will result in those risks. The risk is associated with dust that migrates. So he's, like Dr. Carl Johnson, Dr. Rousseau was very concerned about dust on the top layer of the soil. He wasn't concerned about what's deeper in the soil. So he was a really awesome witness, because this is the hard part. The hard part is getting to what's the risk to a human from a little bit of exposure out there. Then Elizabeth Panzer testified, and then John Lipsky testified. Of course, John Lipsky was the FBI agent who led the raid on the plant in 1989. And he's still very passionate about this cause. He lives in Longmont. He speaks at these meetings. Just encyclopedic knowledge of everything that's happened at Rocky Flats. He testified about that drum that was in the pond, etc. And then, so those were the witnesses for the plaintiffs, basically. There were, I don't know, 8 or 9 of us. And I testified. I thought I was going to testify about all the surveys I had done of past soil studies and public health studies, but I ended up testifying about Endangered Species Act stuff and the potential effect on raptors if the Preble's meadow jumping mice population is disturbed, which is part of their food chain. And I happen to like raptors, owls and eagles and hawks and things, and I wouldn't want their food chain to be disturbed there. So I didn't perjure myself, but I had more to say about the studies I had done. So that was that. So that, back to the slides, that was the ruling. And now the other big thing that's happening in current event with respect to the refuge is this new soil sampling that's going on. Very exciting. We're going to have some new soil sampling for the first time in I don't know how long, at least 5 years, probably 10. And what it is that 6 or 7 local governments, Jefferson County, Arvada, Broomfield, Westminster, Boulder County, have all pooled their money basically to get a federal grant. So if the local governments put up 18%, 17% of the total cost of this project, the federal government will pay the rest to build trail crossings for the Greenway Trail at Indiana Street and Highway 128. And almost all of these local governments made their financial support contingent on a new soil sample and acceptable results from the sample analysis. So Jefferson County is running the project, Jefferson County Open Space, and they put out an RFP and they selected a contractor. It's this company called Engineering Analytics in Fort Collins. And they had an open house last week and another one this week where they allowed the public to sort of review the sampling and analysis plan, which is what Nathan Pierce has done. And Nathan has come up with a lot of reasons why the sampling and analysis plan could be improved, and he'll talk about that in a minute. So the public comment on the soil sampling and analysis plan period closes August 24th. So if you want to look at it, go to Jefferson County Open Space website. You can find a page about the Greenway Trail sampling project, and if you click in there, you can find the actual sampling and analysis plan document and read it. If you the detail, there's a lot of details like how deep of a core sample do you take, and do you blend the soil or not before analyzing it for radionuclides, or do you just analyze like the top centimeter and then the next centimeter and so on? And there's a whole bunch of other considerations about are you careful to take the sample in an undisturbed area or a disturbed area? The undisturbed area is more likely to show contamination than the disturbed area. So I'm not an expert in this kind of stuff, but Dr. Ketter is and Nathan Pierce is. So those are the two current things related to the refuge. And are we trying to stick to an hour?
Did you want to talk about the parkway?
Yeah,
Slide
I don't even
bit?
know when I started. But let's go to the next slide, Lisa, please. Jefferson Parkway.